Hey everyone, and welcome to Singular Stars. In this video, I'm going to be wrapping up my thoughts on Maracaibo against the solo medium AI. I've just finished a playthrough, and so this video is just going to be my thoughts on how the playthrough went, how the AI feels, how I think I could have done better, and just my general thoughts on the game. So, I got absolutely trounced by the AI. The AI scored 64, whereas I scored 11. Sorry, not 11. So the AI scored 164, I scored 111. I was playing on medium difficulty, which I don't think I've played on before, and that did make quite a big difference. The AI was certainly a lot stronger, and yeah, I definitely have a feel that you kind of have to play to negate the AI a little bit. So to try and help prevent the AI from putting discs down, to try and make sure that you stay ahead of it on the quest track. I felt I was a little bit unlucky on the quests because often I was in position to score the quests ahead of the AI, but was unable to actually provide the goods required. Perhaps I should have been paying more attention to the goods required further on or earlier up the game. It is visible what future quests are going to look like from the top of this stack. So that's maybe something to bear in mind in the future. You kind of want to make sure you're ahead on the influence track as the AI as well. The end game scoring for the AI is quite interesting. Obviously, it doesn't have the ability to get any of the prestige buildings, but the fact that if it's ahead of you on the number of quests, on the number of ship upgrades, or the distance down the exploring track, means that you really do have to make sure you're in amongst it. If you allow it to take a lead on one of the tracks, it could potentially take an extra 30 VPs. It certainly took 30 VP off me for this track. It took 20 VP off me for the number of quests. And that 50 VP would be enough to put it bang on top of me. I mean, other than that, I was right there. So that's a tad frustrating. You've kind of got to adjust your play slightly to make sure you're tracking the AI in those areas. It's kind of fair enough, I suppose, because the AI obviously should be getting the benefits of moving down here that it doesn't necessarily see because of the simplification of it. So I guess if you're playing against a human player, you are potentially at risk of dropping those number of points behind if you allow it free reign on one of those tracks. It was kind of frustrating, I suppose, finding myself 7 quests behind the AI when I was explicitly trying to complete quests. 3 quests behind the AI. I had 4 and it had 7. Um, that was in part due to the fact that it had in its deck the B card, I think it was, or was it the C card? So the B card pushed it down that track fairly hard. So the C card pushed it down the track fairly hard for the explorers. That was pretty tough. And the B card gives it a free quest token. So those 2 cards did give it quite an advantage. I suppose where it got its VPs from at the end of the game. Its additional VPs from at the end of the game. So that's certainly something to bear in mind. In terms of how it played, the AI plays really nicely. The deck is really easy to understand. Obviously, because there's a number of different B and C cards that you can shuffle in, you can actually get quite a different AI each time, or different feeling AI each time. I suspect this might be one of the stronger medium AIs, I suppose, because it has got cards that allow it to push down tracks where it does get a decent bonus. Potentially, if it's pushing down an influence track, it may not necessarily have scored as many points. But the AI is quite simple to understand. 1 or 2 of the cards is a bit trickier than the others, but you can easily check up in the manual on those. And to be honest, it does play through really nicely. It does feel like you're playing against a player in some respects. They're doing the kind of things you're doing. You can influence the AI in terms of you can get there and deliver goods before it, the same way as you could with a human. So it does feel good to be able to actually play against the AI, rather than have just the AI doing its thing and you can't really influence it, or you can't impact it or stop it taking points. So that was quite nice. It is a little bit weird understanding how the AI behaves towards some of the iconography on the board, because some of the iconography it ignores and some of it doesn't, and it sometimes, I think it's easy sometimes to get those mixed up. I suspect I probably have been getting those mixed up. Shout in the comments if you've spotted anywhere where I've clearly made a mistake. So that side of it is slightly tricky, but otherwise, I actually really like the AI in this game. I think it's actually one of my favourites, and the fact it is so flexible and can be so different each time really does add to the replayability. The game itself, the game itself is really enjoyable. Just as a basic game, if this was just printed down onto the board as it was, it would be a reasonably strong game. But I could imagine that over time you could get a little bit bored with, what all the cities were doing, and you'd get very meta, very very specific tactics on how to best hit each one. But the fact that these cities actually are randomly generated in terms of what they have in them, and then on top of that, when you start playing through the campaign, you actually have cardboard tokens that you put down in certain spots that might change, for example, spot 17 into being another city, or it might stop one of these locations being somewhere you could stop at, or changes along those lines. So it actually then means you can see the board change over each play, and that gives it a lot of replayability. You could, even if you're not following through the campaign step-by-step, story through story, you could actually, once you play through the campaign, just pick a one of the campaign cards out that looks like this, that specifies what the layout of the board looks like, and just play that card. So there's lots of different kind of board setups that are kind of defined within the campaign, or you can actually put together your own board setup. So you could have a play around with that. You could probably end up doing a kind of random setup if you wanted to, but that might not play so well. But there's a lot of tokens. I think there's around 20 or so for changing the state of the board, which is actually quite a significant number, given that you could play a multiple of them at the same time. So there's an awful lot of different combinations and things for you to have a look at. There is a sense of Great Western Trail to the game. It does remind me of that in places. Things like this extra track down here is a bit like the railways. Some of the iconography certainly feels a little bit similar as well, and but in other ways it is very much its own game. I could certainly imagine someone owning both Great Western Trail and this, and feeling like they were different. This doesn't have the same kind of set collection like you have with Great Western Trail in terms of gathering together the cows. For a solo player, the AI in this is fantastic. Obviously, Great Western Trail has fan built AIs that are quite impressive, but for me they never quite they felt quite complex to run, even with some tools to assist with that. So I never really managed to get comfortable with them. But the AI in this is fantastic. So from a solo player, there's actually quite a lot of content, and it's it's very much a Euro game. So I don't like quite a few Euro solo AIs because I don't feel like they play the game fairly, or they don't necessarily play the same game that you're playing, or they don't really recognise what board state is. And in some extent, this AI isn't recognising what the board is doing. It's not looking at the different actions available at the cities. It's just doing the actions it has available on its cards. But actually, that kind of feels okay. It's still moving around. It's still stealing quests out from under you. There isn't too much variance on what these abilities actually are, and when you take into account the abilities that we can gain through cards, having the AI able to, for example, move 3 spaces on the Explorer track, compared to I might be able to do the same thing if I had the Pioneer. I'd be able to do that if I stopped in this space. So the AI doesn't get abilities that seem vastly different to ones that I could have. And there's nothing that blocks you from, if you land in this space, you can always do this second action. You don't have to do the first one in order to pay for the second one. So there's never a sense that the AI can do something that you can't. So in a Euro game, it actually feels like it's a really solid solo Euro game. It feels like you're playing against a person. Feels really good to play. Obviously, I got absolutely spanked. If I was to go and play it again, I would be playing on a lower difficulty level, and trying to make sure I was keeping in mind what the AI was doing a bit more. Given that there's actually difficulty levels harder than this, I think that there's a lot of room for players to get repeated plays from it if they're interested in trying to beat the AI. Yeah, I think that sums up a lot of my thoughts on it. I suppose my least favourite thing about the game has to be the wooden discs. There's loads of them. The AI has 22. There's 24 on the ship board for a normal player when they start. On the shipboard, they're stacked. I've had these things flying everywhere. They're really easy to nudge, knock over. They're really easy to move them off their little point. There's no dual layer boards that you can stack them up within. Why they have to be discs that stack on top of each other when you could have like a double cube space recessed in, so a dual layer cardboard board with space for 2 cubes above each slot like that, and then they'd fit in, and you take out one at a time, and the cubes wouldn't move around, and that would work fine. You'd probably get some confusion between the cubes going down on here and the cubes being up here, but these don't have to be cubes particularly. And actually, this up here is a bit ugly. You have 2 cubes, like this mess of cubes I've got up here, because you just throw them up there. You can't really get them up there particularly nicely. So that could have been a little bit better. I think one of the player colours is green, which seems a bit brave on a board that is basically just green and blue. Other things that I don't like about the game, I mean, thematically, I don't know. There's something a bit weird going on because we're kind of taking ownership of all these places, and we're kind of recruiting all these people up, and it feels a bit colonialist. It feels a bit like, I mean, we're literally invading these places. That's a bit off, isn't it? In these times, that's not really the done thing. I'm not quite sure why it had to be like that, to be honest. You could have instead have it set up whereby instead we're trading on behalf of of one of these nations, and we're setting up trading outposts, and then you could have just said each city can only have one trading outpost, or it can only have one contract with the city, and we're building up contracts with the city that says, okay, well, only England can trade here and only France can trade there, and you could easily have it slightly different, put across slightly differently, rather than saying, oh, well, we're going to do some combat and now France owns Maracaibo. It's like, okay. Was there anything else I didn't like? No. Overall, I really enjoyed this game. I would definitely recommend it to people. After Great Western Trail and Blackout Hong Kong, I'm a very big fan of all three games actually. So I'd be definitely interested to see what we get next. But this is a really good game for solo play. So I would definitely recommend it to other people. Cool. Okay. So I hope you liked this video. I hope you liked the playthroughs. I appreciate that it's been quite long. If you did like it, then I'd be very grateful for you to click the thumb and show your like, and I'd be eternally grateful if you subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and yeah, I'll see you next time.